Let's look at the next question. The next question, another bar. No, this is not a bar graph. Be super, super careful. This is a histogram. This is a histogram. The question says to us, an electoral officer, I almost said electrical, an electoral officer at one of the voting stations during the 2009 elections decided to do a survey to see how many voters made their mark per hour. So we know that we're going to be working with per hour in this particular case. Says to us, the following graph represents the number of voters per hour. So we know we're working with per hour. And the nice thing is that it's emphasized over and over and over and over again. What do you need to remember when you're given a graph or whenever you asked to draw a graph? What do you need to remember? Firstly, you need to remember that your graph needs to have a horizontal and a vertical title, okay? And then it needs to have the scaling that's correct as well in that particular case, because your bars need to be equal going through. And then it needs to have an overall title at the top. You are marked on that. You do receive marks in terms of that. Please don't forget that. Free marks. Even before you start drawing the actual graph in between, you've started getting marks all the way. Okay? So let's look at this particular graph and what's been given to us. We've been given the title. We've been given the vertical axis title label. Let's call it a label, sorry. Horizontal label. We've been given a scale. Our scale is in thousands, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, and so on. We've been given the times, and the times are in hours as they have been mentioned. And then we've got the nice numbers going on all over there. So I am going to just clean that up for us so that we are looking at a nice clean one. The first question in terms of this histogram is, what type of graph is depicted in the above graph? Give a reason for your answer. And I've been saying all along, it's a histogram, okay? What makes it a histogram? There are no spaces in between the bars. That's it. Let's write that down. So I'm just going to name that number one. Just say number one. So it's a histogram. There are no spaces in between the bars. And those are the main differences between a bar graph and a histogram. So that's why I said to you, know the rules. Know the different types of graph. What makes this graph this? What makes this graph that? Okay? Number two says to us, during which hour were the most number of votes cast? Let's look at that and see how we are going to put that. So for me, automatically, this bar is high and this bar is high. So what would I do? I'd look at the two bars and compare them. Automatically, that becomes a higher one. So the question says to us, determine which hour. So it's in the third hour. So it's 1, 2, 3. In the third hour or between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. In the third hour or between 9 a.m., which is the morning, and 10 a.m. Okay, stunning. And can you see here that we are not sweating? We're actually taking it step by step as it comes. So you need to be super careful in terms of these types of questions. Okay, let's look at the next one. Determine the mean number of votes per hour. Guys, again, let's see how many marks this is. This is 5 marks. Always show you're working out. Sometimes people want to go, put it in their calculator, come back with the answer. Doesn't work like that. Show you're working out. When you show you're working out, automatically you get all your marks. What is mean? Mean is average. Brings us back again to terminology. Range, maximum minus minimum. And then in this particular case, what are we talking about? The mean. What is a mean? A mean is the average, okay? A mean is the average. How do you calculate the average? The average, you add all the numbers and then you divide it by the number of numbers. Let's do that. We need to show that before we even put that into our calculator. So I'm going to write all of that down. So the numbers we are given is 2,968 plus 4,312, 5,876, 1,078, 643. Sometimes learners don't want to go write all of this down, but this is marks. 3,542, 2,789, 435, 577, 3,654. Do you see? I'm adding all the numbers. 5,631. Some learners will say, but ma'am, what if I don't have enough time? Every single mark you've been given, okay? Before I take it too far, every single mark you've been allocated, you get 1.2 minutes, okay? You get 1.2 minutes for every single mark. So if it's 150 marks, you get 3 hours. So you do have enough time to write all of this down and get all your marks. So now I've added all these numbers. I have to divide it by the number of numbers. How many numbers do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I'm going to divide it by 12, okay? So I go and I divide that by 12. And in me dividing that by 12, I go and I put that in my calculator. Let's go put all of that. And we need to be super careful when we're putting all these numbers into our calculator. So 2,968. Ooh, already. 2,968 plus 4,312. Going to try not to make any mistakes. 5,876. Yes, that's correct. 1,078. 643. 3,542. 2,789. 435, 577, 3,654, 5,631, 4,111. Nice one. Divided by 12. That gives us 2,968. 2,968. That is going to be the number that we are going to be working with in terms of the average. So I got all my marks. Okay, guys, be super, super careful. 4.3.4. What percentage of voters voted before 1 o'clock? This question again is another question that puts people offside sometimes. What percentage of voters, okay, already, I know there's going to be a numerator, a denominator, and I'm going to multiply it by 100, okay? Let's go put that down as standard procedure. So I said I know there's going to be a numerator and a denominator, and I'm going to multiply that by 100. What percentage of voters? So it says to us what percentage of voters. Already I know the total number of voters is going to be my denominator. What percentage of voters, that's the denominator. Voted before 1, that's the numerator. Okay, total number of voters is going to be whatever the number is that we got up there. So I'm going to say for time's sake, okay, because I don't want to redo that all over again. For time's sake, I'm going to say 10,000, just for time's sake. And then I'm going to look at the number, the voters who voted before 1. So we can see that this is before 1. So I need to go and add all of those numbers. For time's sake, I'm going to just say 3,500. Okay, so be super careful in terms of that. So I go put that in my calculator. 3,500 divided by 10,000, which is the total number of voters, multiply by 100. That gives us 35%. Okay? So whenever you ask for the percentage of something, what percentage of the voters? We know then the voters are the denominator. Okay? Voted before 1. All the people who voted before 1 become our numerator. But because we're looking for percentage, we need to multiply that by 100. Okay, we found that. That's good. The next question then says to us, determine the range of the voters per hour. Determine the range of the voters per hour. Okay? Range again. Maximum minus minimum. So what is the maximum number of voters? Maximum is the biggest number. Minimum is the smallest number. So we're going to say maximum is 5,876 minus the minimum 435. Put that into your calculator. 5,876 minus 435. That's going to be our range. So what is that? 5,441. 5,441. We do not have anything after the decimal place, okay? So that is going to be our range in terms of that. Coming back to lingo, always, always, always remember the lingo. So in terms of this particular data handling, what is it that I need to remember? I need to remember what the range is. I need to remember what the mean is. Another word for mean is the same as average. I need to remember what the mode is. The mode is the most occurring number. It occurs more than any other number. I need to know what so we have a lot of things. The interquartile range. So we've got the range and then we've got the interquartile range. What is a quartile? Interquartile range is then Q3 minus Q1. Those are the things that I need to know. And another thing that I need to know in terms of data handling is then what does it mean if I've got a high range? What does it mean if I've got a lower range? What does it mean when I have this and that in terms of my data handling? It's super, super important for you to know those things, okay? That's your data handling. Free marks, easy marks. Don't be scared to go and add all your numbers, divide by all the numbers. It's going to give you all the marks that are required. That's all from me in terms of your revision for today. I'd like to thank Liberty for giving us the opportunity to reach out to you guys and you guys receiving all the revision that we had for you. Please don't forget to keep on sending all your questions through from me, Lebogang. See you next week.